Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Daily English Talk. I'm your host, Liam, and today we have a very special guest with us, Chloe. Chloe, it's great to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here, Liam. Thanks for inviting me.
So, Chloe, our listeners are always looking for ways to improve their English, and we thought a great way to do that is to talk about something we all do every single day, daily life. What does that phrase, daily life, mean to you?
For me, daily life encompasses all the regular activities, routines, and experiences that make up our existence from one day to the next. It's the mundane, the ordinary, but also the things that bring us joy and structure. It's about waking up, getting ready, going to work or school, interacting with people, and then winding down in the evening.
That's a great way to put it. It's the fabric of our lives, isn't it? And I think for English learners, talking about their own daily lives can be a fantastic way to practice. You get to use vocabulary that's immediately relevant. So let's dive right in. What does a typical morning look like for you, Chloe?
Well, my mornings are usually quite structured. I'm a bit of a creature of habit. I tend to wake up around 6:30 a.m., usually to my alarm. The first thing I do, before even getting out of bed, is check my phone for any urgent messages or news headlines. Then, I'll head to the kitchen to make myself a cup of coffee. Coffee is absolutely essential for me to get going.
Ah, a fellow coffee lover. I can relate to that. So, after your essential coffee, what's next?
After coffee, I usually spend about 15 to 20 minutes doing some light exercise. It could be a short yoga session or some stretching. It really helps me feel more awake and prepared for the day. Then, it's time for breakfast. I'm a big fan of oatmeal or a yogurt with fruit and granola.
That sounds like a very healthy start to the day. I'm impressed. So, after breakfast, you must be getting ready for work or whatever your main activity is for the day.
Exactly. I'll take a quick shower, get dressed, and then pack my bag. I try to have everything ready the night before, but sometimes there are last minute things to add. My commute to work usually takes about 30 minutes, and I use that time to listen to podcasts, like this one, or audiobooks.
That's a perfect use of commute time for learning. Now, let's talk about work. What does your workday typically involve?
My workday is quite varied, which I enjoy. I work in marketing, so a lot of my time is spent in meetings, brainstorming ideas, analyzing data, and collaborating with my team. There are always emails to respond to and projects to manage. It can be quite fast paced, but I find it engaging.
It sounds like a dynamic environment. Are there any particular challenges or highlights in your typical workday?
A highlight is definitely when a campaign we've been working on is successful. Seeing our efforts pay off is very rewarding. A challenge, I suppose, can be managing competing priorities. Sometimes it feels like there are too many important things to do at once, and I have to be really organized to stay on top of everything.
That's something many people can relate to, I'm sure. How do you manage that feeling of being overwhelmed?
Time management techniques are crucial. I use a planner and a to-do list, and I try to break down larger tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. I also find it helpful to take short breaks throughout the day to clear my head. Stepping away from my desk for a few minutes can make a big difference.
Great advice. So, we've covered the morning and the workday. What about the afternoon and evening? How does your day wind down?
The afternoon is usually more of the same, wrapping up tasks and preparing for the next day. Once I finish work, I head home. My evenings are a mix of activities. Sometimes I'll meet up with friends for dinner or a drink. Other times I'll just want to relax at home.
What does your relaxation routine look like?
It depends on how tired I am. If I've had a long day, I might just curl up on the sofa with a book or watch a documentary. If I have more energy, I might do some gardening, which I absolutely love, or try out a new recipe in the kitchen. I also make sure to spend some quality time with my family.
Gardening, that sounds lovely. And family time is so important. So, what about dinner? Do you cook every night?
I try to cook most nights. It's healthier and more economical than eating out all the time. I enjoy experimenting with different cuisines. My go-to meals are usually something relatively quick and healthy, like stir fries, pasta dishes, or a hearty salad.
And after dinner?
After dinner, I usually do some chores, like washing up or tidying the house. Then, it's time to wind down before bed. I try to avoid screens for at least an hour before sleeping. Instead, I'll read, listen to calming music, or do some journaling.
Journaling is a great practice. It helps you reflect on the day.
Absolutely. It helps me process my thoughts and feelings, and it's a good way to practice writing in English too.
That's a fantastic point for our listeners. So, Chloe, you've given us a wonderful overview of your daily life. Now, let's shift gears slightly. For our English learners listening, what are some common phrases or vocabulary related to daily life that they might find useful?
That's a great question, Liam. I think starting with verbs is key. Words like wake up, brush my teeth, take a shower, get dressed, eat breakfast, go to work, work, have lunch, finish work, go home, cook dinner, eat dinner, wash up, relax, read, watch TV, go to bed. These are all fundamental.
Those are indeed the building blocks. What about nouns?
Nouns like morning routine, workday, evening, weekend, commute, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, coffee break, household chores, hobby. And then there are phrases like, what do you usually do in the morning? Or, how was your commute today? Or, what are your plans for the evening?
Those are excellent. And I think it's also helpful to think about adverbs of frequency. Words like always, usually, often, sometimes, rarely, never. For example, I usually wake up at 7 a.m., or I rarely eat breakfast at work.
That's a perfect example. And it helps to vary your sentences. Instead of always saying, I do this, you can say, I often do this, or I sometimes do that. It makes your English sound more natural and fluent.
Absolutely. And what about expressing opinions or feelings about daily life? For instance, if something is enjoyable, you might say, I really enjoy my morning yoga. Or if it's a bit of a struggle, my commute can be quite stressful sometimes.
Exactly. Phrases like, I love it when, I find it difficult to, it's important for me to, I look forward to, I dread having to, can be very useful. For example, I look forward to my evenings after a long day, or I dread having to do laundry.
Those are great for adding nuance to your descriptions. Now, Chloe, many people find it challenging to talk about their routines because they think it's boring. What advice would you give to learners who feel their daily life isn't interesting enough to talk about?
That's a common concern, but I believe everyone's daily life is interesting in its own way. The key is to focus on the details and the personal aspects. Instead of just saying, I work, you can describe what you do at work, who you work with, or how you feel about your job. You can talk about a specific challenge you faced or a success you achieved.
And don't be afraid to add your personal touch. What makes your routine unique? Do you have a peculiar habit? A funny anecdote from your commute? A special way you prepare your coffee? These are the things that make a story engaging.
That's a fantastic point. It's not about having an extraordinary life, but about sharing the ordinary in an engaging way. Think about the sensory details too. What do you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel during your day?
For example, instead of I eat breakfast, you could say, I love the smell of freshly brewed coffee in the morning and the taste of sweet berries in my yogurt. It paints a much richer picture.
And for learners, this is also a great way to expand their vocabulary. If you want to describe the taste of something, you can use words like sweet, salty, bitter, sour, spicy, delicious, tasty, bland. If you want to describe a feeling, you can use happy, sad, tired, energized, frustrated, excited.
Right. And don't feel pressured to use complex vocabulary. Simple, clear language is often the most effective. The goal is to communicate your ideas clearly and confidently. If you're struggling with a word, try to rephrase it or use simpler terms. It's better to be understood than to use a word incorrectly.
That's excellent advice. And I think practicing regularly is key. even if it's just describing your day to yourself in the mirror, or writing a short journal entry, or practicing with a friend.
Absolutely. Consistency is more important than perfection. And for our listeners who are perhaps listening to this podcast, you're already doing it. You're immersing yourselves in English. Try to actively use the phrases and vocabulary we've discussed. Perhaps try to describe your own morning routine to a friend or family member after this podcast.
That's a great challenge. So before we wrap up, do you have any final tips for our listeners on how to make talking about daily life a regular part of their English learning journey?
My biggest tip would be to make it a habit, just like your morning coffee. Set aside a few minutes each day to reflect on your day in English. You can do this by writing a short diary entry, recording a voice memo on your phone, or even just thinking through your day in English as you go about your activities. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. They are a part of the learning process.
And don't be afraid to ask for clarification. If you hear a phrase or word you don't understand, ask a friend, a teacher, or look it up online. The more curious you are, the faster you will learn.
Excellent advice, Chloe. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. It's been incredibly helpful, and I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot.
Thank you for having me, Liam. It was a pleasure.
And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to the Daily English Talk. We hope this episode has given you some practical tools and inspiration to talk about your own daily lives in English. Join us next time for another conversation to help you speak English fluently and confidently. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye, everyone.